Welcome back to the Unpopular Problem Solver, solving problems in an unpopular way, one video at a time. Subscribe to get notified of all new videos as soon as they are dropped. Now, out of all the subjects in school, which was your fave? Science, math, gym? Like any kid, I loved gym, but a subject that always interested me was history. Science was always my fave until I got older and realized that everything ever told to us about science was a goddamn lie. But that's a subject for another video. The beauty of history. I've always been fascinated on why things are the way they are and how did it become the way that they are. Remember, today is what it is only because yesterday was what it was. So what's the problem with history? Of course, history is written by the victors. Or is it? We all know the losers of wars or the people on the losing end of a conflict don't impose their side of the story or their interpretation onto others because no one will listen. The victorious side is almost always believed more and get to impose their will to the masses simply because they're the victors. Of course, people in countries on the losing side of a conflict can still tell or teach to their people their side of the story. So what's the problem when victors tell the story? They simply flat out lie. Nobody wants to be looked at as the big bad wolf. If it's not a flat out lie, they simply leave out parts of the story that show their tyrant ways. A lot of countries are guilty of this, but when it comes to America and the UK, they're neck and neck. Of course, I focus on good old America. So who decides what's put in American textbooks? Well, a lot of public school districts are ran by committees. Basically, a bunch of old white guys that get to decide what textbooks they will allow and not allow into their districts. Who's at the heads of these committees? They have to be run by someone, right? We'll get back to that. So in order to get your history books into rotation in a certain district, you must appease the committee with pleasantries that make them feel good. A lot of history textbooks are older than most schools. That should tell you just how old they are. Not only have times changed, but culture, style, music also has too. Yet a lot of textbooks are updated simply by making the cover look more modern. But shit written in the book be damn near sounding like old English. It's so damn old. So, I'm sure you wanted some examples of either flat out lies or the truth being simply omitted. Here's some. If you look at the secession of the states that left to form the Confederacy, it's unanimous among historians what led to this decision. Slavery. Everyone knows this in the history field, but when you look at most history textbooks, you're mystified because there's no clear answer as to why states succeeded. That's because the states in charge didn't want to mention the real reasons. When you simply ask people why do they think the Confederacy was formed, the short answer is slavery, of course. But most ponder as to if there's some other reason. Because way back in high school or middle school, their textbook led them to believe otherwise. Why? Because nobody wants to be the big bad wolf. Furthermore, most people have the misconception that the Confederacy was formed to preserve the states' rights, which is somewhat true, but it's just double talk, like how politicians speak, slavery, and secondly, money. All wars are banks' wars. Remember that jewel. Now, my go-to when I want to speak on how history portrays things, I simply say the name Christopher Columbus. We're taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America. In fact, Columbus never even been to America. When he landed in these lands that were inhabited by natives, it was the island of goddamn Puerto Rico. That's known as now as Puerto Rico, of course. So, of course, there were over 100 million people estimated to be living in these lands when he got here. Many textbooks simply undervalue just how many people were here. So I guess if it's there's only a couple hundred people there, that doesn't matter. No, motherfucker, there was just as much people living here as there was in Europe. Calling people savages and saying they need your religion while you pillage the people isn't exactly noble. Christopher Columbus himself in his own journals have described the natives and how he slaughtered them, raped them, and fed them to his dogs. He described this in all of his journals. The Taino people on an island that is down on Puerto Rico had dark skin and thick hair. Well, if you don't believe me, that's what your old boy Christopher Columbus said and about almost all of his men. Yeah, I know. Look at the Indians we have today and it's like, damn, why do they call them $5 Indians again? Alright, so he also talked about how he, his brothers, his men would take sex slaves. Some girls as young as 9. his men weren't sexist neither. Some will take little boys as well. Oh, man. Let's not forget that Christopher Columbus was led by brothers named the Nino brothers. I mentioned them because it's obvious they had been here before, and they were also Spanish Moors. I'll explain the term Moor in another video. Let's not forget that Christopher Columbus wasn't even his real name. Look it up yourself, man. Alright. I know I went off a little bit, but that's what talking about that terrorist just does to me, man. So, am I saying that all history is wrong? No, of course not. But most of it is complete horseshit. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing in history that I actually believe is stuff verified by my own eyes, which means it's not history yet, but will become history. And the events that can be verified by my elders and or ancestors. That's it. Now, who is this man? Come on. It's John D. Rockefeller. Not Jay-Z Rockefeller Record, y'all. The Rockefeller. At one point, the richest man in the world, one of the most richest men in history, due to him having illegal monopoly on oil businesses and making money all kinds of underhanded and under the table and backhanded ways. The term shaking hands and kissing babies literally comes from his old ass. when most people looked at him as an evil old man, and he wanted to uplift his spirit, uplift his image a little bit. So not only was he so rich that he could probably write history books, he actually did write the history books. Of course, he's not a writer or an historian or author. He simply just hired them himself. Remember those committees I mentioned earlier? Who created them? Why were they formed? Well, their origins go back to John D. Rockefeller. I'm talking from grammar school all the way to goddamn Yale and all these other high-class countries, Harvard. I said countries, I meant colleges. But anyway, why would he care about history books? Well, Rockefeller believed in one thing: money. And if something got in the way of his money, well, like I said, he was a very, very wealthy man. He'll handle it. He not only cared about what went into history books, he had his hand in most American school curriculums. Why? Of course, he was racist like most white men of that day, but his plans were very more sinister. Pretty much, he wanted to rule the world. It had a little something to do with also keeping your ass a slave to the system, no matter if you're black or white. The system of paying thousands of dollars for a piece of paper, putting you in debt that won't even go away even if you file bankruptcy. A system that will have you working 9 to 5 for 40 years or more, while men like Rockefeller got rich and richer. Sounds horrible? Why would everyone ever do this? Well, being enticed by job security, which ain't really secure. As long as you work for someone else, you can be fired at any time. But you also get enticed by things like 401ks, benefits, sick days. I mean, they actually give you like a couple of days in case you're sick to go out of work. Fuck out of here. Killing the entrepreneurial spirit of the people is priority number one. If you're busy making your company's CEOs rich, you'll never get rich. When was this first introduced into your brain? School and your parents. How did it get into your parents' brain? The same exact way. History class. Like I said earlier, today is what it is only because yesterday was what it was. Alright, man. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can be the first to view all my latest videos. The jewels are dropped on a regular basis over here, man. Remember, a bright man sees failure as progress. Only a fool learns from his own mistakes, because a wise man learns from others' mistakes. I'm out, man.